KB experiment.
All right, so I get people from time to time asking me how I record my podcast. And I tell them it's simple. I do it on my phone, and I have a plug-in speaker. All I need is a quiet space and my phone. And it's free. They have all kinds of tools to help you do it, to edit, to cut, to ad-lib, whatever it is that you want. And once it's ready and you upload, Anchor has you all set up where you post it or upload the audio once or the episode, and it'll distribute it across other platforms like Spotify or podcasts or Apple Podcasts. And I mean, it does it all for you, which is pretty neat because sitting there trying to upload stuff forever takes forever. And you can make some money. So there's sponsorships, no minimum listenership. I mean, it's pretty darn easy. It's everything you need to make a podcast in your pocket. So go download the free Anchor app and go hit anchor.fm and get your podcast started. Another day, and I'm glad to be alive. What's going on, everybody? The KB experiment on deck. It's King Borris, KB, just me. About to go on and listen to some conversation between the Einstein of Wall Street. If you don't know, you're about to know. Very, 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 very interesting fellow. He put me down on the New York Stock Exchange. You'll find some King Borris stickers there. Much love to you, Peter. And let's get into it. Let me know what y'all think. Peace. The KB experiment. I have Peter Tuchman here as our guest today. Hello, Peter.
How are you, King?
I am doing well. Glad to have you on the show today. How's your day going?
So far, so good. I'm actually up in the Berkshires, Massachusetts, at a house I have. Started doing some gardening and stuff. Super excited to connect with you, King Borris.
Very true. Very nice. Thank you. So, they call you the Einstein of Wall Street. Can you tell me more about that? Well, first of all, I don't know if my audience knows who you are or not. Some do, some don't. But I want them to learn. I
can give you the Evelyn Wood quick background if they want to know who I am.
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So, you want the long story, the short story? I mean, I can go back to the beginning. I mean, I'll answer your quick question why I'm called the Einstein of Wall Street. So, I am a trader on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. I've been doing that for 35 years. You know, in my latter years, I've sort of, after I lost my hair, after being sort of a long-haired, crazy hippie on the floor for many years, I've sort of lost my hair, and I've developed this persona and this look that I actually look like Einstein. I never let people think that I'm by any means as smart as he, but I surely have the look. And so, being one of the more notable sort of long time, I don't call myself an old timer, I call myself a long timer. I've been there for 35 years, and I'm fairly a visible guy. I'm sort of loud. I'm noticeable in all respects, in personality and look. And as the years have gone by, I've become the most photographed guy on Wall Street. And Aaron Burnett, actually, of CNN, a number of years ago, I would say probably in the early 2000s, just said, you know what, you look like Einstein, I'm going to call you Einstein, and it sort of stuck. So that's where the Einstein of Wall Street came in.
Just like that. Isn't that funny?
Yep.
Is it? And they're like, you know what? I like this. And the rest is history.
That's who we did. Exactly.
That's what your Wikipedia says for a recognition. Most photographed trader on Wall Street, most recognizable, most famous. So you pretty much are Wall Street. That's
you know what? It's funny. I was not always that person. My career on Wall Street goes back to 1985, and I can go back into that a little later. But so I would say since 2007, I would think the financial crisis and the fact that a lot of media and representation of photographers and Reuters and Bloomberg and all these other organizations started really getting access to the floor of the stock exchange and my Einstein look and persona and brand starting to sort of develop, that I became that noticeable. Actually, that phrase was coined by when BuzzFeed sort of came into the marketplace, and it was actually done by a friend of mine, John Steinberg, who started it. They did an interview with me. That was just really in the beginning of BuzzFeed. And I really didn't even know what BuzzFeed was at the time, but, you know, just that sort of that very millennial 8-minute segment that people's minds could wrap their heads around. No judgment here. But anyway, BuzzFeed did a piece on me, and they coined the most photographed guy on Wall Street. So that's where that persona came from. And you know, and it's sort of it's funny because all the press organizations now have access to the floor of the stock exchange. It was a very sort of reserved and private organization since 1903. It was not a place that the public had much access to, or, you know, there'd be a stray photograph here and there.
Right.
The market was something that was a very insider thing where, you know, people with money knew what was going on. People who worked there knew what was going on. But basically, besides the 2-minute blip in the news programs in the evening about what the Dow Jones Industrial Average did that night, it wasn't that interesting. But, you know, as people sort of grew up in the business, as the media got more access to the floor, as financial crises came and went, and crashes and 9/11 and things like that, and then people also getting more involved in investing and in seeing what their money could do, all of this sort of like a wonderful perfect storm. And then I came along, and my face came along, and I have that kind of face that can really represent an up 400 day or a down 400 day. I'm kind of like I'm the one-stop shopping face of disaster euphoria.
Oh, that's funny, because I as I look through all your pictures, I know what you mean. Some days it's wild, right. Some days you're like, we're good.
yeah. I mean, they're, you know, and they always ask me what are, you know, first of all, those faces are not really made up. I mean, you know, they're not, you know, that's me. It really describes me to a T. You know, when, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean when I look upset that the market has gone up or down. It's a matter of how I'm representing my customers or the kind of day I have. I'm very expressive that way. But the whole, whole, you know, and so it's a fascinating thing. You know, I know somewhat about what you do, but, you know, building a brand and having a character and inspiring other people and becoming super visible and influencing others in a positive way has sort of been one of the motivators of me building this brand, the Einstein of Wall Street. And for me, it's, you know, I've been 55 for 6 years. That's where I capped out my age. And I will never be any older. So, awesome. You know, I'm a little aged out of some social media and whatnot, but I've been able to find and navigate my way back in through my brand, through my character. I mean, I'll tell you a little bit later. We just launched a sneaker line 2 nights ago at this big charity event called the Einstein of Wall Street Air Einstein Ones. It's what? Sort of I'll show you a picture of it. So,
yes, please.
You know, I'll start the podcast by saying one of my main taglines is, if you find something you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life, right?
Yes.
So while my life has had trials and tribulations, ups and downs, starts and stops, numerous careers along the way, I found something I love to do, and I think it's really important when you do that, and it's something that you wake up to. It's not work; it's your motivator, right? You're there to create and inspire and motivate others. Then what's better than that? That's why we're here, in my experience.
No, that's awesome, man, and that's the truth. You have and I'm sure it didn't happen on purpose. So that's what I love about these things is they
happened without my permission. It happened without my permission.
But it happened because people saw something, and
Correct.
Sometimes it takes that. You know, like I have other friends that I did the same thing to Paul Harris, right? It's a guy that I know, very good friend of mine. He knows everyone, everywhere, always. And one day I said, Paul, you know what? I'm going to call you the mayor, because the mayor always shakes hands with everyone. And literally that just stuck. So he called himself the Mayor Paul Harris. So we created a logo for him. And
he started getting phone calls. Hey, I heard about this guy called the mayor, but his name is Paul. Is that you? He's like, yeah. He's like, so his persona that has been created is now itself, which
Correct.
is that's branding, and that's the same thing. I forgot how I found you, but I think I saw your picture, and I saw your hair. You had this wild picture going on, and I said, who is this guy? I like this. And that, I got drawn in. And then when I did the research, I was like, oh, man, this is a story right here. I love this. And I was like, I have to talk to this guy, Peter, because I remember back in the day when I was younger, would have a 2-minute blip of Wall Street, and it was like a madhouse. And that's all you would see. Right. So you'd think, oh, well, Wall Street is just this, you stay away. Everybody that works in there, you could only see the people coming in and out. But nobody really knew what it looked like, just like you said. But now, right. I mean, as it evolved, it's cool that you became the face of it, because you'll always be the face of it, moving forward until somebody takes your spot.
Correct. Correct.
Wall
Correct.
Street
and
will always have its Einstein.
Correct. And I sort of visually, I took over from another guy who back in, it was in February of 2007, there was a guy who was called, his name was Alan Gershowitz, and he was known as the face of Wall Street before me. And it was he sort of had an expressive face. And I think if you look online, he was sort of a little bit before the online story. But rarely they took a picture of that your hand on your head look or the euphoria look, he was the guy. And then when the first photograph was printed of me in the Daily News throwing my hands in the air, I can send you a shot of that. But it was the day the market was down 600 points, and they interviewed him outside, and he was actually retiring. And they said, so what do you think of this guy Einstein? And this is the photo. It turned out it was the front page of the New York City Daily News, and it was me with my hands in the air, and it went sort of viral back then. And he goes, I'm happy. I'm leaving the business. I'm going to pass the ball to Peter. And that was sort of the beginning. And what was so wonderful was that I like the fact that you said the brand has eclipsed me, because it has created a persona, it's created a brand, which I'm now is sort of exploding in a big way, and I'm so happy to connect with you. But it's bringing people into my world here. That's sort of, there are certain jobs, there are certain people, there are certain things along the way that can be so motivating, but that sort of has a boundary or a scab around it, that people think, oh, I can't go to that place, or I can't be involved in that sort of an exclusive club. And for many, many years, it was a super exclusive club. It was a place that outsiders didn't go, and it was way too hot to touch. But right. I think, and this is sort of something I've learned from bringing people into my world. And also there's a whole thing about financial literacy and whatnot, which I'm trying to spearhead in a lot of ways too, that people get more involved in markets and investing in themselves, and one of my, I'm working with a bunch of young organizations, one being My Social Canvas, which is a Gen Z platform for young girls. It's about, the tagline is, you should be buying stock and not stuck. Basically, that young people are our biggest consumer base, and that everybody thinks they need the next sneaker, the next iPhone, the next this. And at the end of the day, they end up with spending a lot of money on stuff and not investing in themselves and in their future.
Right.
And one of the great things is, if you actually track it and realize that, you got to have the iPhone 7 or iPhone 8, even if it's not broken. But if you had just held on to the old phone and invested that $200, $300, $400 in Apple stock, well, in a year you could have bought 5 phones, right? So
right.
That's just a little side story.
And that's a good point to bring up, because right now there's a lot of and being that social media is very visual, you have to catch somebody's attention because the attention span is real short. Right. There are pages out there talking about exactly what you said. Instead of investing the $250 in a pair of Jordans, let's put it over here, make money off of it, then you can buy them and still have extra money. So that culture is starting to breed itself little by little. If you go to Social Authentic on Instagram, he has a lot of content that's literally what you just said. step by step. Not step by step, but just it's visual in telling the same thing. Stop wasting your money here. Put it there. That way you can live a better life in the future, and you'll have
where things will grow.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you can buy a pair of Jordans and then you can pawn them, or you can resell them and all that. But
you know what? That's changed.
One-off.
That's changed. It's not as
well. That's also a crowded category. But at the end of the day, Nike stock and Under Armour stock and MSG stock, ESPN stock. This is a matter of making your money grow and investing in your grow, and it also motivates you to start learning what's going on, right? And I'll talk later about this. It's called fractional investing, but it's a fascinating thing. I mean, look, I love what you do. I love the story about the mayor, and I think that's sort of one of the ways I got to you too. Mayor Paul Harris liked something on Instagram, and then you liked it, and then I looked you up, and I thought, there.
Oh yes, that's right.
Right, so I think that was one of the ways we connected. But I love the fact that we're in a world right now where you're a specialist at what you do. And if anybody really wants to build a brand and to advertise and to grow and influence in a positive, there's plenty of it going on in a non-positive way.
Right.
But if you're going to do it in a positive way, somebody needs somebody like you. If someone wants to know what I know and be part of my world, it's really, it's important for me to open that up to people, to teach young people about how to build a brand, about how to advertise, how to motivate people, and to live life with a purpose. You're not just doing it for the money too. And I'm a for-profit guy. It's fine. If you're a for-profit person, then you can actually achieve a lot more. So, I'm a Wall Street guy. They look at me as a finance guy and whatnot. And I work for a lot of different charities. I do a lot of young influencing the young people about financial literacy and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's super important to live life with a purpose. And I think that we all look. For me, I want to be involved with what you're doing. I need you on my team, right? Hopefully, you want me on your team. It's a matter of you know what you know. And I never look. I do 7 TV shows a week. I'm on TV all over the world on a regular basis. When people ask me questions that I don't know the answer to or are not in my wheelhouse, I'm the first one to say, you know what? I'm not an economist. I'm not an analyst. I will tell you what I know. And I love sharing. That's my truth. I love sharing what I know and not just, I don't know if you can use, I can't.
You can say whatever you want.
BS people. Yeah, I don't like BSing people. There are a lot of people on TV who are just running their mouths and doing a narrative and saying things for the sake of saying it. I kind of like, once people start listening to you as they do to you, and they're starting to do to me, you're held to your word, right? Your word's your bond. Once you say something, it's in the air. You can never capture it again. So it behooves me to think about what I say, talk about my truth, because my truth will never change.
Right.
I know who I am, I know where I came from, and I know my motivation, right? And I have a spiritual program. So I know that it's important. People are going to hang on my word, right? I see it out there. People, they're the lovers, they're the haters. They're people who dog me. I try not to get too involved with it, but
the haters.
But I like to be a positive influence, as are you.
Right, and being authentic is what I try to be, because when you lie and you're not truthful, you forget. It comes back, just like you said. They hold you to your
you're
word.
Always chasing it.
So
you're always chasing a lie.
Yeah, and everybody's lived that life. We can't allude to the fact. I mean, we're humans. Humans lie, but it's learning to not lie and go, okay, I've learned my lesson, and now I'm just gonna be who I am, which is
100%.
Yeah, and doing
I got to be honest. My journey was not. Look, I'm trying to do the right thing now, but I was not always that person.
Same here. I mean, I've learned a lot from what I've done, and to these days, I still there are still repercussions to the negative that 100%. I've lived, and I'm like, but I accept it. I'm like, okay, you know what? That was on me. Yeah, got to move forward, but I learned from it, and I think that's what's cool about your story is that you have this, that the Einstein is not something you made up. That's just you. And someone said, I want to name you this because this is what you remind me of. But that's your authenticness that is now taking a form of itself, which is going to lead to so much more, because
Correct.
Your life isn't just Wall Street. I'm pretty sure you don't live
It's
there.
really not. No. There's so much more to it. And that has sort of given me, having that name has made me feel responsible for living up to it in so many funny ways. But it's also given me, I didn't know much about Einstein, even though I look exactly like him. But it's, one of the funny things about him is that besides him being like, the smartest guy, everybody knows a little about him.
Yeah.
But if you read Einstein's 30 best quotes, right? They relate to everybody, right? When we're done with this talk, I beg you to go online and just look up and Google Einstein's 30 best top quotes.
Okay.
And you'll find that so many of them are things we say all the time. So many of them are things we think all the time, right? It's actually kind of funny that how powerful he is. And I'll tell you the funny thing about this whole, I get on the sub. I live in New York City. I live on the Upper West Side. I get on the subway in the morning, and I always wear a suit. I always go to work. I go to work no matter what. Somebody dies, somebody's sick in my world, whatever. For me, my workplace, the floor of the stock exchange, is where I find, motivation, spiritual growth, and the catalyst to stay positive on a daily basis. So I go there no matter what. My mom said my mom died at 93 a few years ago. She said, and I'll tell you her story later. She said, when I die, I want you to cry and go to work. That was how I was brought up. But it's funny. I'll be on the subway going downtown, and there'll be a bunch of one particular funny story is that there were a bunch of school kids on their way from the Bronx to Brooklyn, and they had there were probably 30 kids in my car where I was standing, and they were all sitting there intently studying, right? And then they're looking up at me, and one of them, and they looked like they were nervous. They're obviously on their way to an exam. They were probably 15 years old. And one of the young girls looked up and said, "Wait a minute, are you Einstein?" I said, "Well, yeah, in fact, I am." He said, "You know what? This is amazing. We're all studying for a math test.
Oh, man.
And I'm just wondering, if you came to our class, right? You're Einstein, right?" I said, "Yes, I am Einstein." They said, "Dude, look, first of all, can you help me answer question number 1? And then if you came to class with us today, the teacher would give us all an A."
Oh, my God. That is
so
comical.
I said, "I'm sorry I can't go with you to class, but you tell the teacher you met Einstein on the train, and maybe she'll treat you right."
You should take a selfie. Now you can do your selfies.
I know.
That is awesome, man. That is amazing. I love it.
They believe what they want to believe.
No, it's the truth.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's the truth. So let me ask you this. So there was a life before Einstein, right?
Correct.
Still on the Wall Street stock exchange. So I'm assuming that your vision of your future pre-Einstein was different than when Einstein came about.
Correct.
So where did you see yourself before Einstein?
Well, I'll go back even a little bit further just to give you a quick version, because Einstein became this new incarnation of Peter Tuchman and the Einstein of Wall Street probably happened in the early 2000s. Okay. It really took off when the first photo came out of me in 2007. Prior to that, I had a long career on Wall Street that had some ups and downs. But if you go back, I'll give you the quick version. My parents are Holocaust survivors, both spent 4 years in Auschwitz during the war. They're from Czechoslovakia and Poland. They came here in 1949. I grew up on the Upper West Side. I went to Riverdale High School. I was sort of a privileged kid in so many ways. Okay. I was pretty wild and woolly in high school. I left there. I went on to college. I studied agriculture. I studied international business. I ended up coming out of college, opened up a record store, a sort of super cool record store.
I read that.
In the West Village. It was an African art gallery. It was a music studio. It was a hangout for all the musicians. I thought I was going to become a farmer. I lived in Israel for a year. I wasn't. I ended up doing this whole thing with the music business. I spent 4 years doing music management, production. I managed jazz concerts and jazz festivals all over the world until I was about 21, 22. In the end of college. And then I came to New York, opened up the record store in 1980. That lasted about 2 years. It was more sort of a vision, a dream for me. And it never It was successful in many wonderful ways, but not particularly. By the time I opened it, and I had opened this beautiful, it had Listening Booths. It was modeled after a European store.
Okay.
Listening Booths, a coffee bar, an African art gallery. Everybody was hanging out in the back. I didn't have enough money to buy records, so I put my own record collection in. I was a kid, right? But I had sort of one of these, 2 a.m. epiphanies that I was going to have this cool store. And it was open for 2 years. It was successful in many ways, but wasn't. Things got a little crazy. We're talking the 80s in New York, Studio 54, wild, crazy time. I kind of took a detour that I don't need to go into details about.
Understood.
But things got a little woolly, and I ended up having to leave town.
Okay.
And I ended up going and living in West Africa for 2 years. So I figured I needed to get as far away from Peter Tuchman as possible.
Okay.
But as we learn in our world that no matter where we go, we bring ourselves with us. So anyway, I worked for a Norwegian oil company there. A friend of mine owned the company. I had another wonderful part of my journey. I was working on it was pre-computer. I was working on Lotus 1-2-3. It was before really Apple came out.
Okay.
I was training Africans on accounting and whatnot. I was working for the president of the country. I got involved in the African culture there. It was quite something. I was studying the drum. I mean, I had 2 wonderful, wonderful years in West Africa, the People's Republic of Benin. And then I left there. I kind of got kicked out of there too. So I definitely had not. The detour continued, and I came back to New York. It was 1985, and I ended up getting a job on Wall Street through my dad. My dad had a patient who.
That's right. Your dad was a doctor, right?
My dad was a doctor in New York City, a pretty well-known doctor, and he had a patient who worked at a brokerage firm on the floor. And I was a little bit afraid at the time, and I wasn't that directional, but I knew business was an opportunity that I wanted to pursue. And he said, he goes, it was May 20-something. I had just come back from Africa. It was wild and woolly time. And my father said, I'm going to get you a summer job as a teletypist on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. I said, fantastic. I said, it's great. And all I really needed to do was to go down to the floor one time and see the energy and the adrenaline down there and the way it was. And the human factor, that was what I was really attracted to. Look, the floor of the stock exchange is a wild, crazy place. Now a little less than it used to be. But if anyone in your audience has seen the original movie with, there are movies all over the place. Well, the movie with Michael Douglas and the original Wall Street. What we do is called open outcry, right? It's screaming and yelling. I'm sure people have seen Trading Places, right? All right. So there are certain qualities that make you a great trader and a great broker. It's a certain atmosphere that is not attractive to some people. If you're the kind of guy who needs to sort of warm up in the morning and read the paper, have a coffee, stroll around, and then
get to work,
that's not the job for you. But if you're the kind of guy who likes, you're a thoroughbred horse, they hit the buzzer, and you're in full run mode, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, and you're a good people person, and you're good on your feet, and you're nimble, and you can freestyle, and you can relate to other people in a good way, and you're good with numbers, well, and the human interaction is important to you, even though it's all about money, then that's the place for you. And I found that in the New York Stock Exchange day one. And I knew when I got there, I had arrived. I'm sure you've had those epiphany moments. Very often people of power and influence do that when they've taken a long journey that's taken them through darkness and light and good and bad and, high roads and low roads. But then they find something that clicks. It's sort of one of those white light experiences, an epiphany moment where this is what I want to do. This is not a job. This is my motivator. This is the spot. And Wall Street was that way to me.
Awesome. And that's actually how I feel at the moment doing these podcasts is that white moment where I'm comfortable and I'm like, I could do this. I love this. I want to continue doing it. So it's, as you say that, I'm thinking, man, this is how I feel right now. So
good. I'm so glad.
That's awesome.
Well, that's why we connect.
Yes.
It's a human thing, really.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're here for a reason, we hope. And that I had a brother who died recently, fairly quickly. He was a pretty famous guy. And when he died, hundreds of people showed up at his funeral, and everyone in the room, 450 people showed up. It was absolutely amazing. I mean, he died in 8 weeks from being sick. He was he was a healthy guy. He got pancreatic cancer. But what was fascinating about the experience of throwing his funeral, 450 people showed up, and everyone in the room believed that they were his best friend.
That's awesome.
Right? I mean, everyone shared about it. Everyone talking. And everyone's going, I thought I was his best friend. So what I always wrote about my brother was that he took every opportunity to interact with another human being. That's part of this journey that makes it worthwhile.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so that's what you're doing. To hear people's story, to hear people's truths, to hear what, we're all here to learn too, right? I can learn from you. You can learn from me, right? You have your experience, your truth, and I have mine. And if we can, and I wrote in the eulogy too, it isn't a matter of dying with the most toys, right? That's meaningless. But at the end of the day, if you've been able to change somebody's life one day at a time in a positive way, well, then you've done your job.
Yes, 100%. And I agree. I'm not rich yet. One day, but I will.
One day.
I will mold myself, and I have, in a way that I influence people positively. So that way they see Borris, they think of Borris. It's like, yeah, it's a good dude. I haven't really heard the opposite. Because I try to stay authentic and I treat everybody the same. And like you, I want to hear your story, not just for me, but I want people to know that life can change in a positive way, and you can roll with it and just keep going.
Correct.
And it becomes whatever it's going to become, but you have to accept it. You could have said, no, Einstein, I don't look like that guy. I look like Peter. This is me. But where would that have gotten you to fight that?
It wouldn't have got me anywhere. It really wouldn't have. It's amazing. And look at you. You're King Borris. It's a persona. It's, it's so it attracted me. Right. And in a big way. And I really, obviously it attracts 350,000 other people too.
Yeah.
But, but that's whatever it takes to connect, right? We live in a really strange world right now that people can hide behind a phone and a text and a tweet and all this shit in a negative way. But if you can inspire people through this weird, ability to connect to 350,000 people, but do it in a positive way, for a positive purpose, and be a motivator and a good person that way. Well, if you've helped one person a day or one person a week, for them to be a better man. You said you're not a rich man. Well, you are, though, in a lot of ways, because, it seems like you're a good person and you're living life with a purpose. The financial part will come, right? And look, trust me, I'm as I said before, I'm a non-profit guy. Right. We need, one of the artists, I do a lot of stuff with art. We can talk about that later too, but this has been one of the directions I've taken with having felt comfortable with my brand and whatnot. I've opened my world to social media. And what ended up happening was that art and money sort of seemed to interact. And once I got on Instagram suddenly, and I would post things about money, everyone, all these young, wonderful, amazing, influencing artists that are in the world today who are using social media to sell their art, and their art may relate to money in a way, came into my world. And so I opened the doors to that. There's a gentleman named King Saladin, who is a character called JP the Money Bear, and he made it motivated by the loss of his friend who died of cancer. He came into my world, and we've become best friends, and I got him a show at the New York Stock Exchange. There's a guy named Mr. E, who's a young guy from Jersey, lives in Miami now, and his art is all around history and the $100 bill.
Okay.
And he talks about money, and all his art is about money. And he says that money it doesn't buy you happiness; it buys you freedom. Right? So that's how you have to look at it. That look, money surely isn't everything. There are a lot of people who have more money than God, and they're still not happy, good people. But at the end of the day, if you're doing the right thing, it's part of the puzzle.
Right.
And if you put it into a puzzle that's got a lot of other components that are really good, you know, at the end of the day, that's a great thing. It's it's freedom.
Right.
It really is.
Money just brings out who you really are, is what they say, and it
sure
amplifies
does.
it.
It's 100%. It's like, you know, character is who you are when everyone leaves the room, right? It's not a matter of just showing a persona that is, you know, it's walking the walk, not talking the talk.
Exactly.
Right?
Taking the shoes off your feet and handing them out. That's how I say it. and I, you know, and I say that because that's me and my family have been helped through times, and I've always helped people because of that. To the point where I've given my clothes away, I've given my shoes away. I tipped a gentleman at Applebee's once a pair of Nikes, and the manager came back and said, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Why would you even ask me that?" I handed him a pair of sneakers as a tip. They're $100 Nikes. He deserves them, so let him have them.
And I'm sure that positive energy came back to you.
Yeah, I'm blessed to say yes. I've seen it, and I kind of know how to live in the world of, you know, that universe of karma and all that. So I'm still paying back for some of it, but it's
100%. Me too. As I described, this road has not always been a bright, shiny one.
But it's life.
It's not. We also say it's not a matter of how many times you fall down; it's how many times you get back up. And also, it's about doing the next right thing. Trust me. We don't have to go into detail, but my life, you know, there were times where I was not that bright, shining star that people are looking at right now. There was not somebody who did not tell lies and not tell the truth. I was not somebody who didn't take hostages along the way, right? But at the end of the day, you can't give up before the miracle, and the miracle is that you can change. You know, you drive the car looking forward. Mm-hmm. You know, don't look back, but don't stare. I mean, it's never too late to change what you did, right? You can make amends for the shit that you did. I'm going to be spending the rest of my life making some of those amends, right? But at the end of the day, you know, you wake up in the morning with some good motivation, some good adrenaline, you know, and you decide today I'm going to do something good for somebody else. You know, one of my other tasks, you know, always come from a loving place, you know, go with kindness in your heart, no matter what. You talked about that. You know, you walk down the street. There are people I work with to share some of my spiritual program with. And at the end of the day, do something against your nature. Right. You know, if you're walking down the street and they're on the first block from your home to the subway, you're pissed off at 5 different people. Well, probably something's not right going with you. It's not those 5 people. So you know what? Give $1 to a homeless guy in the subway, say hello to 3 people, and start your day over again.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
We can do that. We can start our life, our week, our day over again anytime, right?
Yes. I've gotten to a point where I cannot, where I have to say at least hello to people. But as soon as we make eye contact, I give them a nod. I feel uncomfortable if I don't acknowledge them, like good morning. And sometimes they feel weird. They're looking like, who's this guy saying good morning? But that's
what's his motivation?
That's just me.
What is he?
Good
crazy?
Morning. How are you doing? Excuse me. You know, I like to make sure that people feel acknowledged. You know.
Yeah, I agree.
And I talk to them a certain way, and I've and I've done a lot of motivational stuff on a personal level. I've had people, grown men crying on the sales floor of a dealership in front of everybody, who's a tough guy, but a week later he says, you know what, thank you, because they've moved ahead. And seriously, like within a week, one gentleman doubled his income. This is a specific story I'm talking about. And I told the guy, I'm like, dude, you're worth more than this place. You can go out and get a job at any dealer as a finance manager, making $250K a year, easy. I guarantee it. I see it. You need to see it. Once you see it, then you'll get it. Literally within a week, he was in there, said, you know what, I'm done with you guys. They gave him another store in another location, and they were like, how much do you want? He said $250. They said, done. And the first thing he thought was, damn, I should ask for more. But the point is that I just had this feeling that I should talk to this gentleman. His face didn't look right one day, and I said, what's going on, man? Talk to me. And I didn't even know him real well, but it's just knowledge, the pain that was on his face, and I couldn't just walk away and say, well, you deal with it. I just started talking to him, and it's what he needed to hear, that's
Awesome.
That's what drives me, is when I can do that, then that's my purpose,
100%. It's the ultimate. It's the ultimate purpose.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So I'm gonna take a quick break because I want to pay these bills. Be right back.
Cash App. I hope you're using it, because everybody uses it. I use it like crazy. But if you're not, it's all good. You're here now. Hit the link in the description. You get $5, I get $5. $5 for nothing that's what I'm talking about. Cash App. I do have the Cash App card, by the way. That's pretty cool, because when people pay me with Cash App, it's like extra money to me. So I just use the Cash App card to buy random things that I probably don't need, but oh well. Cash App. Description. Click it. Join now.
All right, so we're back. And Peter, I do have a question. You were talking about movies at the stock exchange. Were you there when Bane took over the stock exchange in the Batman movie?
Say it again. What's the question?
Were you on the stock exchange floor when Bane? You know who Bane is? He's
Oh no.
Bane is one of Batman's enemies.
Oh no! Wait, no, I don't know that story at all.
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
no. And I think it was The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Returns. Bane went to the stock exchange, took it over, and one of the guys is like, "There's no money here. Like, what are you even doing here?" But he hacked the system. But
no way.
Oh, you got to watch it, man. Bane is one of my favorite.
Oh,
characters.
I'm gonna watch it the minute we're done. No, I actually was not there for that.
Okay.
But I will share a couple of stories with you. I was the first Wall Street movie, which was Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen, right? And it was I don't remember what year it was. It was called Wall Street. It was a big deal movie, and it was about insider trading, and it was fast and furious and wild and crazy. Yes, I was there for that. I was there for the filming of it. And there's actually a scene. I haven't watched it for a while. I don't think you can actually see me, but I was in one of the trading scenes. So do you remember the movie?
Not too much. That's one I have to watch again.
So there. Okay, that was the first Wall Street movie. I mean, obviously there was the Leonardo DiCaprio story. I'll tell you that.
Oh yes, with the Wolf of Wall Street.
Correct, but it's if people are intrigued by Wall Street and the way it used to be, they should go back in. It's not that long ago. So there was a character named oh my God, Ivan Boesky. Ivan Boesky was a guy in the Ivan Boesky was a guy in the 80s who was claiming that he was getting premonitions about to buy and sell stock, and he became a corporate raider. And it turned out that he said he was hearing through his pillow that to buy certain stocks and whatnot. It turned out that on the other end of the pillow was a guy up at Goldman Sachs who was feeding inside information. Right?
Oh my God!
And so he ended up making hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and he ended up getting caught in the end. He did some time and whatnot. He paid a very large fine, but but it was sort of a time where there was a lot of takeovers, mergers and acquisitions. RJR Reynolds Aluminum and RJR Nabisco.
Okay.
And Beatrice Orange Juice, and there was a number of big takeovers that he had inside information about, and he sort of raided the cookie jar and made millions and billions at the time.
Wow.
And so that's when that movie came out. And Michael Douglas plays him, and there's a great scene in the movie where he does a motivational speech called "Greed is Good." He said and that was sort of a premise back in the day for people who really thought that Wall Street was just a place about greed and money and didn't give a shit about people. And there are, the people I work with are not those people. There are some people upstairs who are, a little more ruthless. Those are the sort of people who have taken a different route sometimes, not always.
What does that mean, the people upstairs?
Okay, so the floor of the stock exchange, which is the trading floor, which is what, in the commodity world, it's called the pits.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, it's called the NYSE. It's where the actual trading and interaction between traders and market makers goes on. And it's called the street in a way because historically it's really, it's the, we don't there's no finance. Okay, we buy and sell stock.
Mm-hmm.
We exchange, the transaction is being done by taking each other's badge number, company we represent, how many shares, and how much the price of the stock was.
Mm-hmm.
We never interact cash or money. That's why that Bain story is funny, because there's no money down on the floor.
That's what they're talking about.
It's a farmer's market without money.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and it's basically historically been a lot of families were down there, grandfathers, fathers, and whatnot, because there's no training for the job.
Mm-hmm.
There have been a lot of people from the neighborhood. It's not a place where your MBAs, people with masters and big education went down to,
mm-hmm.
because it's a pretty ruthless job, right? It's next to air traffic controller. It's the most stressful job in the world,
wow.
right? So it's really it's screaming and yelling, human interaction, fire and brimstone.
Everybody mimics that. Buy,
Yeah.
sell. So that, yeah.
Correct. It's deep adrenaline exaltation, right? Now, so those are the qualities you need to be down at the work I do. The upstairs people we call the upstairs people, are people up on trading desks, more of the investment bankers, the people with more education, the MBAs, a little, I would say, more educated and fancier people.
Slower pace.
People who have different training, they're accountants. They do a lot of the IPOs, the initial public offerings. They're sort of the, they're the people that people have an image. Those are the guys who get the big bonuses.
Okay.
That's people's image of what Wall Street is. The street where I work, which is the floor, is a little bit different. We don't have the MBAs. We're not the investment bankers. We are the point of execution. We're the frontline guys, right? So it's a matter of screaming and yelling and getting the best price for your customer. Upstairs is a different thing.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Okay, so I was talking about the movie.
Yeah.
So Gordon Gekko, who was played by Michael Douglas, is this super fancy, elegant guy who's raiding and robbing everybody of money using inside information. Charlie Sheen, before he went crazy,
yeah.
Is sort of a guy who really wants to be like him. He wants to be the fancy money-making guy, and so he aspires. And there's no way to get to this guy, Gordon Gekko,
mm-hmm.
because he's surrounded by this. There's a wall around him because he's the person everybody wants to be like at that time. It was a small period of, nobody knew in the beginning that he was stealing, but he became super wealthy. He was like, investing in big art, driving fancy cars, and had slick back hair, fancy, whatever. And Charlie Sheen wanted to be that guy. He wanted to be the sort of the Teflon Don, big deal fancy guy. And he went on to throwing out all his integrity and character, and to be able to lie, cheat, and steal to get into bed with this guy, Gordon Gekko. Well, what ends up happening is he gets caught, and he ends up turning on Gordon Gekko, who is Ivan Boesky, and he took hostages along the way. He ruined his relationship with his dad and whatnot, and realized at the end of the day that that losing your integrity and character is not worth all the money in the world. So there's sort of a story to it. I don't think I don't think the real Ivan Boesky really gave a shit at the end of the day, but at the end. But so that's sort of the dynamic. So that's the only other movie. The only other movie that people would know is The Wolf of Wall Street, which is a true story. Were there drugs and alcohol running rampant in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s on Wall Street? Absolutely. Was it the adrenaline that made people, do things that probably were a lot of poor judgment? Absolutely. Was there a guy who he didn't call himself the Wolf of Wall Street. There was a guy named Jordan Balfour who ran a firm that was completely as crooked can be. And yes, there was. And he unfortunately is still here. He's making money, motivational. He's still around. You can look him up. He's a bad guy. He sold out everybody along the way when he is such a bad guy. So he's a guy who literally stole money from school teachers.
Everyone.
Right? The day he got caught, he took $300,000, the last money from a little old lady he still hasn't paid back. So he stole $200 and something million, and then he got caught. He sold everybody below him out the river, all his best friends. So you know how it works in the Fed business. The first guy to turn is the guy who gets away with murder, right? So he was the first guy who the Feds got. They turned him. He sold everyone else out down the road. And what ended up happening was he did a little bit of time in prison. Now, so what do I mean by a bad guy? I believe a bad guy is somebody who cheats, lies, and steals on Wall Street, who gets information illegally and takes money from people under a wrong premise and doesn't really invest it. What he was doing, he was running a pump and dump scheme, which means that he would buy stock and then he would use other people's money to pump and dump a stock. So where he would tell everyone in the world that this is a good deal. Everyone would go buy it, and while they were buying it, he was actually selling it. So that's called pumping and dumping, right? So and everything was all smoke and mirrors. What ended up happening was he did some time. The Feds told him he had to pay everyone back. He is still yet to pay people back. He's out there motivated. Everybody sort of wants to be that guy who gets away with murder and screws people. I don't get that part of people's motivation. He's still out there making $500,000 a speech, and he's still not paying people back. He's paid back out of the $200 million. I think he's paid back $15 million, and there's still people out there whose whole life savings were destroyed, whole lives were destroyed by this guy, and he's out there living the life. It's
crazy.
So,
yeah,
that's all I want to say about
humans. There's good ones, there's bad ones. I mean,
correct.
That's the balance, I guess. I don't know, but it's what it is. That's crazy. The Wolf of Wall Street. How did that? I guess when it happened in real life, did you know anything about it? Did you? Was there any connection there? Not that you did anything, but.
Well, the connection was that people knew. So, most of these scenarios that have happened historically about people with insider trading or pumping and dumping and whatnot does not happen on the floor of the stock exchange, because we're not the ones who are connected to the customers that way. We're the point of execution. We're being given orders to buy and sell stock by trading desks, not actually the customers themselves. People who are up on trading desks, the mergers and acquisitions people, investment bankers tend to be, and traders upstairs on trading desks tend to be people who have access. If they're good people, they do good, and if they're bad people, they do have access to do wrong things. It is an information highway that can be a bad one or a good one. So at the end of the day, we knew that there were firms upstairs that were doing this kind of thing. It's gone on over history. Like in any business, there were bootleggers selling booze, and there were brokers trading stocks that were not legitimate. Did any of it trickle down to the floor of the stock exchange? Apparently, there were a few traders on the floor who unbeknownst to them, I think, perhaps there were some who knew, that they were representing Jordan Balfour on the floor. Called Oakford Security. So I believe that there were a small group of bad apples, as you would call them, that definitely were involved in it. They were making money illegally. But traditionally, the floor of the stock exchange tends to be a spot that's not where some of this darkness lies.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, that's I know a lot of stories. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've never really dabbled into stock, but I've seen what it does and how it can be deceiving, and it's
like greed is a very funny thing. Money does funny things to people. They will do things for money that they would not do otherwise. And at the end of the day, as we say, integrity and character are super important. Not that I've never done anything illegal in my life, but at the end of the day, to actually take to destroy other people's lives along the way to better yourself. No. That's unfortunate. Now, granted, at the end of the day, if he had done what he did, he came clean and he paid everybody back before he went on to live a solid life, then I wouldn't have a problem with the guy. But the guy is still doing the wrong thing.
Right.
So I don't tend to be a judgmental person because I've done enough things in my life that are questionable back in the old days.
Right.
But at the end of the day, that's kind of he's never come clean and done the right thing. So he actually recently tried to befriend me on Facebook or one of these things, and I did not want any involvement in somebody who still this day is out there. He's selling a book. He just came out with a book, and he's selling it, and he's not paying his people back. So
that's crazy.
End of story.
Roger that. Moving forward, I know you.
Yes, sir.
I know they've automated Wall Street more, and there's a lot less humans on the floor than there used to be.
Correct.
And I know you said that you always believe in that person doing this trading versus the software, because the software has no emotions. And I mean, what's the difference between what the software would do versus what you would do?
Okay, so it's a big thing, and it's one of the things that I speak about on a regular basis. Besides my daily interviews about breaking down, I call myself a forensic broker.
Okay.
So I'm not an analyst, I'm not an economist, but I'm a trader. So I'm in the marketplace on a daily basis. And I like to analyze why stocks go up and down, not particular stocks, why groups of stocks, why the markets do what they do.
Okay.
So I'm on CNN regular and international, Yahoo Finance, Modern Wall Street, it's a small YouTube channel on the floor. I have my own TV show called The Einstein on Wall Street, which is a YouTube thing I do in Germany every night.
Okay.
I've done CNBC, I do Cheddar. So I love to go on, and I've been there for a while, and I've watched markets go up and down. So I get a sense, and I am I work for a company that has customers that are hedge funds and trading desks and whatnot. So, but I'm fascinated by the market. I'm fascinated by people's reactions to things. So historically, we've had 1,650 brokers on the floor. We've had hundreds of market makers. We had this whole system of open outcry, which was the screaming and yelling that you described in the movies that people have seen. And what people's images of Wall Street. Obviously, when computers came in, things changed. Obviously, as technology and algorithms and software has been built to trade the market, we've gone to the point now where there are actually, with Twitter and social media, there are actually algorithms and robots that can read content online and actually engage into the marketplace, right? So, I mean, it's gone that far where, if you have a one of these robots or algorithms that reads Twitter, and somebody posts something on Twitter, whether it be the president or a firm that has content in it that describes a Chinese trade deal or a takeover or a rumor or whatever, and you have an algorithm or a robot that reads that and actually engages in the S&P 500, you'll see some of these wild moves in the market that we've been seeing over the last couple of years, where it'll buy the market, sell the market, and whatnot. So all that being said, and I'm not a tech guy. I don't own a computer. I never have. I do have a smartphone. That's as far as I'll go. Okay. So I'm sort of the anti-tech person. I'm really a humanist in a lot of ways. Okay. And so I'm happy that the floor of the New York Stock Exchange is actually informed. I'm not happy this happened, but I'm happy that it still exists, that we are the last bastion of any human interaction in markets throughout the world. A lot of the markets that used to have humans are much less now. Maybe there are guys on phones, but a lot of it is mostly algorithms and software and whatnot. So all that being said, to give you the long version of a short story, is that so first of all, the algorithms are only as good as the people who program them. They don't. Okay, so markets. So it's a funny story to tell, because the more there are algorithms and robots trading markets, the more necessity there are for humans, because you realize that. So if everybody if 50 people at the table are running programs that react to the same tweet and the same information and the same robots. And then when something comes out that catalyzes a market move on the upside or the downside, and I'll try and keep this as generic because everyone on your listening booth is not a trader.
Right.
So if everybody is following the same information and everybody has some level of an algorithm that reacts to positive news or negative news, then these algorithms are all going to be chasing each other. Right. The whole point is everybody is slicing and dicing a market. Everybody wants to be the first guy into the marketplace, whether it's good news or bad news. Okay. And so at the end of the day, what you end up having is everybody's chasing the same train. Everyone's software and algorithm is chasing that one bit of information, right? So everybody's leapfrogging each other to the point where once all of the and these algorithms are headline motivated, volume motivated, time motivated, right? So let's say, I'll keep it super simple. Let's say a tweet comes. We've been going through over the last year and a half a story about a potential trade war and tariff effect relationship deal with China.
Okay.
You know, you've got to live in a box if you don't know that the United States and China has been going through a trade war for 18 months between Mr. Trump and President Xi of China. Okay. Okay. Our administration believes that they should be they believe that we should have a contentious relationship with China, one of our largest trading partners, because they've stolen our IP and that they have not been paying their fair share.
Okay.
And our administration believes that we should install a lot of tariffs on them to make them pay for this relationship.
Okay.
I won't get into the politics of it because I don't talk politics.
Same here.
But what it's done is, so a tariff adds cost to the buyer and the seller, okay, of a product. Okay, so if you put tariffs on a product, Walmart is going to have to pay a lot more for the product when they buy it from China, and the cost will end up being more to the consumer here in America.
Right.
Okay, that's just a little story. Okay, so we're in a trade war with China, right? And we've been negotiating it. One day we have a deal, one day we don't have a deal. One day we have a deal. Now, it's a very big story, right? It's going to affect you as a consumer. It's going to affect the farmers in Iowa. It's going to affect
everyone.
Our trading relationship with other countries. It's going to affect the producers in China. It's going to affect companies like Caterpillar Tractor that does business in China. Okay, so it's going to have an effect on all levels of our economy. Okay, all right. So when a headline comes out that we have a deal last Friday, I'll give you a perfect example. We've been working up to a deal for 18 months. 16 times over the last 18 months, we've had a deal and then the deal fell through. Okay. Every time that we inch towards a deal, the market likes that because it means that Cat Tractor and Target and Walmart and the farmers are all going to get some relief because we know markets tend to historically
fluctuate,
assimilate and process and digest information, whether it's good or bad. Right.
Okay.
At the end of the day, the market figures itself out. It evens itself out. Good news settles in and comes to levels off, and bad news processes itself and figures itself out. Okay. That's what markets do. They equilibrate eventually. There may be a good month or a good year or a good quarter, but eventually that settles in, it equilibrates. Bad news eventually figures itself out. So at the end of the day, and I'm giving you this example because it's been such a radical example, because every time information comes out about a deal, it affects so many people that the market goes. So last Friday we had we inched towards a deal, right? The president, the Chinese delegation, and our administration were meeting in the White House, and all the news that came out of it was we've got a deal on the table. The stock market went up 500 points. Okay. When the information hit, all the algorithms kicked in and the market spiked up very quickly. So everybody whose algorithm was reading all these positive headlines that we have a deal, no longer a trade war, China agrees, whatever the you're a man about content, right? So it's reading keywords, and I don't know shit about this, but I've learned that rumor takeover, trade deal, no more tariffs, whatever it is. These are words that robots read as a positive effect, and they take the market up. Well, at the end of the day, once they're all done buying it, and everybody's done chasing their own tail, a trader like myself will know that if I didn't get involved on the first spike of the market, all the rest of it is just chasing your tail. And that if I slowly calm down and I actually read into the information as a non-emotional human being, as somebody who's there to do the best thing for my customer, I will realize from the knowledge I've known historically that those big spikes are just it's funny, they're almost emotional algorithm spikes.
That's what it sounds like.
They are algorithms chasing humans, chasing algorithms. And at the end of the day, if I read it and I interpret it and know that those spikes tend to level themselves off, I won't get involved the way an algorithm will.
That's interesting.
Okay? Right? Also, it's a matter of how I interpret the algorithms. Don't interpret news. They are reactive.
Right.
As a human being, I respond. I don't react. So I may react excitedly in the beginning for a moment, but I'm not going to blow my. I'm sorry to use the language. Blow my load. I'm not going to buy all my stock because this is it, and the market's never coming in again. And this is, it just get all crazy about it. I may be involved a little bit. I may dip my toe in the water, but I'm not going to just jump into the Arctic Ocean. Okay. So at the end of the day, human beings are actually much more in a very technologically advanced and motivated marketplace. While people say, well, there's no need for you anymore as humans. Everything can be done electronically. I say that this is all the more reason. The more, if there are 100 people at the table and 99 of them are using algorithms, that one human being whose experience knows way more than 99 machines is all the more important in a market that's being fueled by technology. So I really believe, and I talk about it all the time, that in this environment where we've had, think about it. I mean, our markets can get hacked.
Right.
Computers can get hacked. Your financial information can get hacked. Somebody can come in and make start posting fake news. People can come in and start having robots like they did with this on Facebook during the last election, right? Where they create stuff, they're creating things that aren't particularly real. So for me, in a market that is fueled by so many algorithms and robots reading headlines, and in a world that is the information highway of headlines and tweets and is so as second by second, right?
It's dangerous.
In any given day for me, a market can go up 1,000 points back and forth 5 or 6 times. We can have a complete reversal from an up 400, down 300, up 200, down 400. Well, these while people look at it and go, "Oh wow, that's pretty crazy," those are actually billion-dollar moves in a marketplace that could undermine the foundation of our economic system. So it behooves me as a human being, and it behooves the markets to put a lot more onus on humans involved. It's like I don't know about you, but I would never get into a driverless car.
Right. That's hard to.
At the end of the day, I think that's crazy. When you're in a plane flying on automatic pilot, right? And the plane hits turbulence, you sure as shit want a pilot, a human being, one or two of them to take it off automatic pilot and to fly the freaking plane.
That's
right.
The Hudson, the plane that landed in the Hudson.
Correct. So that's what I do. I'm the guy who takes it off automatic pilot. When the shit hits the fan, turn off the fan, I clean up the shit, and try and figure it out.
Yeah, that's an awesome analogy. I love it, and that's the truth. And I think, as you say, all these algorithms, all that can be manipulated in many different ways. So I think it's dangerous to just automate everything, because
I agree in every way, in every part of our life.
Yeah, and that, wow, how many people are on the floor now versus 20 years ago?
So we had about 1,500 brokers and probably another 3,500 employees in many, many rooms with many, many companies.
Mm-hmm.
So all of it's not algorithm related, but as technology came into the market and there were a lot of mergers and takeovers and whatnot, we are now drifted down. I think there are probably about 500 brokers and maybe another 300 or 400 employees.
Wow.
So we're probably, yeah, it's unfortunate. Look, I can send out 250 orders in 7 seconds from my handheld computer that used to take a couple brokers to execute.
Okay.
So unfortunately, while the technology, as it is with anybody's job, right? You walk into a CVS drugstore now, and there's one teller and a bunch of self-checkouts, right? It's no different than my life, Now, is it more user-friendly to go to a humanless checkout? Absolutely not. It makes no sense. You can't put the stuff in the bag. Same thing in my business. I mean, it may be easier for these guys to press a set it and forget it algorithm and execute 1,000 shares, easier than calling on one guy who calls another guy who calls me, who executes the stock. But at the end of the day, putting your life and your money in the hands of a human being who's going to do the right thing, who you have a relationship with, in my opinion, in the bigger picture, and I think we see that in so many parts of our lives, is a better way to do business. Look, I wish we could turn back time as far as technology goes. I wish the floor had 5,000 people on it like it used to. There's nothing I can do about it except, in anybody's job, is try and help preserve the integrity of the market, to try and let people know that we need humans now more than ever before.
Yes.
And that at the end of the day, the human interaction part is a really important factor. Even more and more as technology takes over our lives, I believe in certain parts of some things may be made easier, but as I described to you, I would never want to get in a car where there's no driver. I surely wouldn't get into a thunderstorm on a plane with no pilot. And I don't want to trade in a market that's being run by a robot. I would rather have a broker. That's all I got to say about that.
And that the whole thing on the Batman movie, Bane came in and he uploaded, I guess, an algorithm, and that's what he did. He collapsed everything with software.
Right.
Just like
it
that.
can be done. I mean, I guarantee you there's someone out there who can do it.
That's wild. So, all right, so let me ask you this. When everybody's yelling on the stock floor, who are they yelling at?
Okay, so
I've always wondered that. Like, who the hell are you yelling at?
Okay. It's a great question. It's a very simple answer. So think about it. I'll give you a perfect answer. So it's called open outcry. It's an auction market. I'm sure you've seen at some point. If you see an auction of art at Sotheby's or something, right? If you see it on TV, I've never been to one, but they go on. Or you can be as simple as let's say King Borris owns a small luncheonette in Houston. Okay. Or you own a nice little restaurant, like a comfort food restaurant. Okay. And it's important to you. You have a really cool menu, and on the menu every day your menu changes. And you have a really good salad. You have a very simple menu. You have a really good heirloom tomato salad on the menu. Then you've got like a choice of scallops or chicken on the menu. And then you have a beautiful chocolate fondant dessert, right? And you're a artisanal chef, and you really love your customers, and you want to get them the best food possible. So you don't go to buy your food at Key Food. You send them to the local farmers market in Houston. Okay. And there's probably another 20 restaurants just like you. And so, but you've made your menu in the morning.
Mhm.
And so you tell your chef, you own the restaurant, and you and your chef have a meeting in the morning. You know what? Look, this is what we've got. This is where it's July. There's a lot of fresh produce in the market. There's a great seafood thing going over there. La la la. Go out, and this is what is on our menu. Go to the farmers market in Houston, and do me a favor. You have no budget, right? I want you to get heirloom tomato salad. I want seared diver scallops and free-range chicken, and I want a chocolate molten lava cake for dessert. And whatever you got to spend, you spend it.
Gotcha.
All right? Then there's another restaurant next door that is also a very artisanal, wonderful restaurant, but they haven't been around as long as you, and they don't have as much clientele, and they're more money conscious, right? They are much more budget conscious, but they also want an heirloom tomato salad. They also want diver scallops and chicken. But he says to him, you know what? Don't pay more than $2.50 for the tomatoes. Try and spend $4 for the scallops. If not, you can get flounder, right? And then for dessert, if you can't get the chocolates too expensive, we'll have a peach melba, right? You both go out to the farmer's market. You both converge on the guy who sells tomatoes, right? Now by the time you get there are 5 other people with the same story. One guy's got a budget. One guy has no budget. One guy can spend $2.50. One guy can spend $4.50. Right? You all converge first on the guy who's the tomato farmer. Right? Now, the tomato farmer had a really shitty season, and there's not that many tomatoes. He sees 5 of you show up at his door, right? And one guy says, I'd like to buy, a bag of those tomatoes. And he goes, well, how much are you willing to spend? He goes, my budget's $2.50. You show up and you have no budget. He says, well, and the guy says, I don't have much supply, right? We had a bad year. It was a bit of a drought. I don't have that many tomatoes. I can maybe give you 5 pounds. So he says, I'll pay $2.50 for those. You say, screw this shit. My guy told me I had no budget. I'll pay $4, right? The other guy whose boss said to him, you know what? I'd rather you don't pay more than $4, but if if they're the only tomatoes in town, you can pay $5. Right? So the other guy says $4, I'll pay $4.50. Well, the guy with no budget then says, oh, well, I got it. I'll pay $5. Another 4th guy walks in and says, holy shit, my boss told me if I don't buy tomatoes, I'm fired. He goes, I'll pay $6 for those tomatoes. All right? That's an auction market, right? Okay. So, look, it's not the end of the day if everybody gets screwed out and they got to go to Walmart to buy their dinner.
Right.
But if you're talking about a stock, right? And you're representing a guy with millions of dollars, and you go out there and you have to do the right thing for your customer. Well, then there's a lot of emotion involved, right? You're not paying $2.50 for tomatoes. You're paying $1 million for 10,000 shares of stock. Okay. So we go out to the stock and we start, you go out and you make a bid. I'll pay $60 for 10,000 shares of Disney. And another guy walks in, he says, I'll pay 60 and a half. Another guy walks in and says 62. Suddenly some news comes out that Disney just took over ESPN. Somebody walks in and says, I'll pay 70 for 100,000. Well, at this point, the emotions are getting pretty high. Yeah. Right? Because all the sellers see all these buyers come in and they go, shit. It's like Vegas, right? If you see a guy with three aces, you're gonna walk away, or you're not gonna play with them, right? So everyone in the crowd has a motivation, and everyone has restrictions, and everybody has a posture in a way. These are sort of, I don't know if everyone's going to understand the words, but when I go in as a buyer, I'm looking for a seller. Okay. Right. So while you may hear, and so there may be 5 buyers screaming, but every one of them knows who they're looking for, right? And everyone who's a seller knows they're looking for a buyer. So while you'll see a crowd of 50 people screaming and yelling what they need to do, there's actually kind of a one-on-one interaction. The guy who's bidding 70 is looking for the guy who's willing to sell it at 70. So I can, when I go into a crowd of 30 people screaming and yelling, I actually have my eyes set on somebody who's going to say something that's what I need to hear.
I got you.
If I say I'm bidding 70 for 100,000, I'm waiting to hear 100,000 at 70. I'm willing to say, if I walk in and say I'll pay you $6 for 5 pounds of tomatoes, I'm looking for the one farmer that's willing to say, I'll sell those to you.
Right.
So all the rest of it is just noise. I know what I need to be hearing when I walk in that crowd. So while to you it looks like chaos,
yeah, sure does.
Right? It's friggin' madness. Like, how do those people know what each other's doing? We are, well, first of all, it's what we learn to do. Secondly, we know what we're looking to hear, right? And the rest of it's chatter, right? I may be interacting with more than one person, but at the end of the day, what seems like chaos and madness to you is actually completely calm to me. So that's why I said to you in the beginning of the podcast, you know when you get down, I thrive on adrenaline and chaos. Mm-hmm. For me, that keeps me cool.
It's a New Yorker
thing. Walk into right. Some people walk into a room of 1,000 people and they want to kill themselves, right? They prefer a one-on-one thing. Some people, it's just how your brain is wired, right? Not everybody can do what King Borris does. Not everyone can do what I do.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, what you have a mission when you go into that crowd. So as an outsider, I mean, think about it. Could you get on a 747 with 400 people on it and fly it? No, absolutely not. Right?
Correct. Very hard.
I know. So does that answer your question?
Oh yeah. No, I get you. There's a method to the madness. I mean,
there's a method to the madness. I first of all, I know everyone in the crowd, so I have a relationship with them. But at the end of the day, too, we also have a thing. What goes on between? I may be screaming and yelling and fighting with somebody in that crowd, but at the end of the day, we wipe the slate clean.
Right.
But also, when I go in there, I have a purpose. I have directions. Right. And so a lot of the screaming and yelling, I just I turn that volume down and I'm waiting to listen to the person who I'm going to negotiate with. And that's what it is.
It's madness. I love it. I love it.
Madness. Right. It's controlled madness.
Yeah. Was it controlled chaos?
Correct.
Oh, yes.
Controlled
yes.
chaos.
Yes. What is, so moving forward, what are we doing with this whole, you got your Einstein persona. At some point, Wall Street is, going to keep going. And you're going to be somewhere else. What's that? I'm not sure
about that. I like the question though. So what's going to happen going forward? So right now I'm I don't think I'm peaking at all. So the character me on Wall Street has reinvented myself a few times relative to me as a trader and a broker.
Okay.
And so I've hired my son. He came down to the stock exchange with me. His name's Benny and he's my partner. Nice. And we work together. And that's wonderful. That's a little piece of history because in the old days, your grandpa worked there, your dad worked there, and your son worked there. And the more this technology happens, a lot of that's drifted away, and fathers are not bringing their sons down to the floor of the stock exchange to work. I've been able to find a wonderful niche to trade and be successful, so I love having my son.
That's awesome. I never even thought of that disconnect from the past. I've never thought about that change of going down the family.
It's not happening anymore in a lot of businesses, right? Mm-hmm. As businesses change, father and son teams or grandfathers or families have owned businesses for years. And, as we see technology come in and things have changed, I think there's probably less of that passing it
Agreed.
on. I would think fathers are probably saying to their sons, you know what? I don't see this working for long term. You're young. Maybe you should find something else to do. And most people have done that where I work. I always wanted my son to be with me. I always hoped that he would love the adrenaline and the stock exchange as a future. Right. And so we are probably one of the only fathers and son teams down there. So I'm thrilled about that.
That's good. I love it.
Yeah, it's wonderful. What I've done further is, so this brand and this character, right? So as I described to you, I've brought in. So I've found that I've needed to. I'm not sure I've needed, or what's happened to my as I've spread out into social media, and I've sort of been loving this. You know, you talked about Mayor Paul.
Yeah.
So my persona has sort of taken on a life of its own. So there are people on social media who drew a picture of me, which I'm sure you've seen. It's sort of a caricature of the little Einstein guy. And then that was a guy named Alvino. He's a veteran, lives in Vegas. Wonderful, wonderful cartoonist. So he sent that to me. He said, I follow you. I think you're great. And I'm sending you this character. So that character I kind of ran with. Okay. And then there was a guy who saw the character I posted, who runs a merch company. And he shows up at the stock exchange. He had made buttons and pins and cufflinks of that character. And so he just brought them to me, and I started giving them away. So that sort of took off. And then I said, you know what, maybe I can have some fun with this. So we made some patches, and I'm coming out with a line of polo shirts, and I actually launched the Air Einstein 1 sneakers.
Oh, I got to see that.
It's going to be a limited
edition.
I'll send you a picture when we're done. Limited edition. I'm going to, I'm working with a guy named Richie Range, who's one of the most famous bespoke artisanal sneaker designers in the world. Does a lot of stuff with Nike and with Budweiser and Mr. Peanut. He's come out, and the Houston Rockets and all these things. He basically deconstructs well-known sneaker brands and makes custom.
Yes.
We designed a sneaker which we launched at the Member Handicapped Charity Event Fund last Thursday. It's basically a brand I won't mention at the moment, but it's a beautiful sneaker. I'll send it to you. Okay. We're going to come out with 58 of them, and we're going to give the money to charity. That's one thing. Okay. Then I'm doing, so I have a whole line of merchandise coming out. I'm coming out with my website soon. So we're going to do, hopefully, the sneaker thing. I'm working with a lot of young artists, helping to mentor them and motivate them. I've been put on the board of a company called My Social Canvas, which is a Gen Z platform to empower young girls through branding, advertising, and sale of merchandise. Okay. I'm working with a company to do financial literacy, and to educate people. So educating young people about what I do is something I'm doing more. I'm kind of like financing it a little bit with the merchandise, which most of it I give away. Okay. How do I see my future? I hope the stock exchange will be there forever. I hope I can stay there. For me, it's a really motivating place. There was a period in 2008 and 9 where I didn't make any money, but I stayed there and I came to work every day, and I just interacted with people. And, and I thought, as I described to you, it is an incredible, I work in the main room of the stock exchange. It's 120 years old. It's got a ceiling made of gold flake. Wow. It's surrounded Beautiful. By, all of the history and energy and adrenaline and media and all that. So it's a place that's an amazing. You've got to, when you come to New York, you of course will be my guest.
Yes.
But it's a place that if you walk in the door, look, at any given day, any head of state, any CEO, any celebrity comes down and walks by me. So for me, as a branding, advertising, marketing person, I mean, it's what I love to do. I love that. That's something that intrigued me about you. So that's probably what connected us. But so for me, and you seem like you're a master at it. So for me, that's a big motivation, right? So I can go down to work on a bad day, a good day, somebody died, somebody's sick, and it's still somewhere where I get everything I need spiritually to go forward. So there may come a time where it's not my everyday job. Hopefully, maybe I'll pass it on to my son. But for me, I think every day is a wonderful palette where I'm going this financial literacy thing. We're going to do some fractional investing, maybe create a small bank of these young women, Gen Z people, with my social canvas.
Okay.
I'm going to do some mentoring of young people. I'm going to do something with the art. I'm curating art shows, doing charity stuff. I've been asked to curate a thing for the Movember Men's Health Organization on the floor of the stock exchange. So I'm trying to use my notoriety and fame and celebrity to do good things.
Right.
I'm using it to support my family. I'm having a lot of fun with the Einstein and Wall Street brand. We're going to do sneaker line, a shirt line, hats. I give away these Dow 27,000, 28,000 hats. So I'm going to try and find a way to monetize me as a brand, at the same time to use this in a purposeful, mentoring fashion.
Right. I love it, man. And that's what building a brand is. And I think, and I see that it's going amazing and it has a huge future to it. Because and I love the art. That's one thing. I used to do graffiti when I was younger. So.
You did?
Oh,
cool.
Yeah. I used to paint the trainways from New Jersey to New York. Many stories of that.
Awesome. Where'd you grow up?
Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Oh,
I was born in Queens at Queens General.
No way. So you're new. All right,
So,
cool.
Yeah, I've only been in Houston for 5 years, so I'm,
Okay.
I see you've tagged Wishby in some stuff. The Wishby, the artist that does.
Wisby is a close friend. He's a very close friend of mine.
Yeah, I met him in Brooklyn. When there's a lot, there's a lot of art in Brooklyn. There's a lot of art shows,
A lot of art
in the air. So I've met him and a lot of other artists. But as I look through the feed and I look at, I see you've tagged Banksy. I saw Wishby in there, and I'm like, okay, that's you know a lot of people in the art world. That's
I do. That's something that's happened over the last couple of years, and it's I bring them into my world, and they brought me into theirs, and it's been it took 20 years off my life. Just feeling young and part of that community. A lot of people know each other. We do a member handicapped children's event. It's a charity, one of the oldest on Wall Street. We do it every year. We did it last Thursday. And it's been historically just sort of a party and a small raffle to raise money for kids. But I came in and I have all these artists sort of come into my world, and I've suddenly been done a couple curations. I'm not a curator, but it's something I put together. And we did a silent art auction on Thursday. If you look on my feed, you'll see it.
Yeah, I see it here.
And we had King Saladin and Ben Gulak and Wisby and the Compound, and all these young artists came and they donated work, and we raised a lot of money, and we sold 23 pieces with 3 collectible toys. I launched a sneaker.
Wow.
So that's been just a wonderful addition to my life.
Yes.
And I'm thrilled about that.
That's awesome. Do you know Cause?
You know what? I do not know Cause. I'm a collector of Cause. I am trying to. He's sort of an incredible artist, sort of a quirky gentleman. I'm trying to connect to him. I've actually made some connections that know him, but he's sort of a soul. He's sort of a soul entity, and so I'm very respectful. And I've learned in the art industry that a lot of these super famous guys tend to be a bit of isolation. And so I don't try and get in people's business. I try and connect people to my world, and we'll meet one day, but I love his work.
I came across Cause in 1995 in the Newark subway line or train station line while he was painting the back of the Sears building. There's a Sears warehouse. I was 15 years old. And I remember me and my best friend Mario we're walking the track and we're going to go paint. And we saw these guys there and we ran into them, but they were older than us. And we kind of, watched them. And then, they knew we were there and we kind of looked at each other. Okay. And then we left. When we came back, there was a big Cause piece. I still have a picture of it. And, as his fame grew, I always remembered, man, I ran into that guy in the trainways. And I still have that picture, but to see where he went with it from 1995 on the train to where he is now is, it's wild. Same thing with Wisby, with his the bear that he makes.
With the gummy bear.
It's amazing.
He's in every museum.
Yep.
Right. I just came back from Amsterdam. There's a 5-foot one in the biggest modern art museum in Amsterdam.
Wild. wild. The next name that we need to hear out there is Fumero, the guy that I sent you. He's doing some huge things. I mean,
100%.
I met him, same thing in Brooklyn. In fact, I met him at a dealership. He came out of his car and dropped a bag of caps. And I'm like, wait, so you do graffiti? He's like, how do you know? Because I saw his everybody has a different type of cap that they use in their spray can.
Right.
That's where I met him. But I was able to realize it. Wait, that's not anyone just has a bag of caps. You obviously do something. So I've met a lot of these people. You know, Jersey Joe. I don't know if you know who he is. Rhyme.
I don't know him.
He's huge. Just, you know, in New Jersey, there was a huge graffiti culture in the 90s.
100%.
Huge.
Yep.
And you had Rhyme, Cause, and Nace. They kind of ran the scene. Nace passed away. Rhyme and Cause, became their own people and did big things. Cause is doing what he's doing. Jersey Joe, same thing. Sells art, sells toys. The culture's still there, but it's not like it used to be. But the 90s era.
So the last thing I'll say to you before we break up, because it's getting late, is that there is one more thing you'll have fun with as we do business together, you and me, is so the characters become so endeared to everyone that I've come out with we're coming out with it now, and I kind of launched I solidified the deal. So my little Einstein of Wall Street character is going to be a collectible toy. So we're going to be making it from Lev Tokyo, who's the number one toy designer in the world. So Lev Tokyo is going to take on the little Einstein. And if you look, I'll send you a picture, but we had the prototype was brought out at the party on Thursday night. It came in one of these wild little hot box, like a lock box.
Yeah, no, I didn't see that.
And,
I want to see that.
I'll send that to you. It's amazing. So that's also coming out too. So we have a lot of fun things. Some of the money will go to charity. Some of the money will just may end up in my pocket, and some of it will be used to keep motivating all the rest of the fun things I'm doing.
Right. Awesome.
And hopefully you and I will do some work together.
I am planning on it, my friend. This is amazing. I love this talk. I love this episode, and I need to get back to New York so I can go visit.
100%.
Now, before we go, you want to plug anything? You want to websites? Where can we find you?
Well, so I will be coming out with my website, The Einstein of Wall Street, really soon. I'd love to plug that. I'd love to plug the toy, the collectible toy, Lev Tokyo, Pop Life Entertainment, the sneakers. I hope, because I'm hoping that we're going to issue some of them. People who follow me on Instagram, The Einstein of Wall Street, there'll be a limited edition. A lot of that money will go to charity. I think everybody who follows me on Instagram will see I'm pretty out front about my life, the artists that I'm working with, who are all, just so you know, everybody who, there's a lot of great artists out there, but everybody who I'm actually pushing and mentoring and bringing into my world are people who are super, have a purpose, have a mission. They're on a mission from God, and so that's super important to me. Like the King Saladins, like Wisby, Sean Sullivan, Layer Cake, people who are there to do good things for other people, and the stock exchange, and the work I'm doing down there, and to, for everybody to realize that the humanist point of view is the really most important thing. Always come from a loving place, be kind, reach out to another human being who's not doing as good as you, and as you said, just walking up to someone, making eye contact and saying hello. Perfect. So I'm sure there's a lot more we can plug, but I think we've covered a lot of territory.
Roger that, man. I appreciate your time, Peter. I know it's valuable, but this was an amazing episode, and I hope that my audience takes so much from it. And they're gonna find you. I'm gonna put all your info in the description.
100%. I would love one last thing. I really appreciated this, and this is what my time is made for. The last thing I will say is, so I have my wife, whose name is Lisa Zumwalt, is a documentary filmmaker, and she does a lot of work with young people with mental illness and some problems like that. She had a film called Crazy, which people can go online and see, about schizophrenia. But she is now working on a project called The Power of Pink. And if everybody goes on to my Instagram page, they will see a video about it. Children with cerebral palsy and a gentleman named Tim Levins, who's a famous pop artist, have converged for a program to get children who have cerebral palsy, which is a physical disease, not a mental disease, who basically have minds that work beautifully, but bodies that have left them.
Okay.
And we've devised a program so that they're able to paint. So it's a documentary about really freeing these kids from their physical problems and give them the opportunity to paint. You know, painting and art, as you know, as a artist, can really open people's lives and open people's minds. So she's out there trying to raise money to do this documentary. You know, if everyone can give a little through the site, that would be
I'll
great.
plug it.
If everyone just can look online and see the project, and just be involved in any spiritual way is great. But she is looking to raise money. If everyone wants to give $1, $5 to the Power of Pain, it's online. You can link to it.
Okay.
And it's a really, really significant project.
I'll help out. I'll push it. I'll put it in my stories. I'll give everybody the directions of where to go. And myself, I'll definitely donate and get involved. I appreciate that.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
All right, my friend.
Let's talk soon.
You have a good one. All right, brother.
Talk to you soon,
Bye.
brother. Bye-bye.